Okay, now let's try to share screen right there. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Will Bezesto, and I'm going to be talking about um, ChatGPT. What, if any, uses do you think ChatGPT has in an academic setting? It's a good question, right? This video is not about how ChatGPT works. If you are interested in how to find out how ChatGPT works, then I encourage you to go to some of the places that I've noted here. There's all kinds of places. And by now it seems like we all have a pretty good idea how ChatGPT um, how it works and what it should do. And the real question is, does it have a place in academia? Should it have a place in academia? And if so, what is that place? Here's a list of my works cited if you want to go back and take a look at some of these. Um, there's a lot of stuff out there. This is just some of the stuff I found. Um, what are the issues? Well, we've got plagiarism versus original work, accuracy. When folks are writing their entire paper using ChatGPT, they probably shouldn't expect too much accuracy. The practical uses, what's ChatGPT good at versus what it's bad at, the implications for creative writing in the humanities. What does academia think? And I think more importantly, or just as importantly, what do you think? Plagiarism versus original work. Chris Anson has a quote that basically says ChatGPT constructions would technically not be a case of plagiarism. So you have all kinds of stories. My daughter is a recruiter in the Army, and she goes through all these search engines to find out if some of her recruits are using ChatGPT to write an essay that they've been assigned, etc. Um, and until computers are considered authors, we're probably not going to get to the plagiarism point for ChatGPT, but it is considered contract cheating, according to Anson, and that makes a whole lot of sense. Um, but where and he does in his work, he does a great job of talking about why do we focus so much on plagiarism, and it has everything to do with academic authors accruing credit and credibility from their texts. And as you publish under your name, you get more earned credit from your text. And I'm not disagreeing with the system. I understand that it's what happens in academia. I'm just saying that these are the sort of the juxtapositions here when it comes to plagiarism versus original work. And then you have lots of other examples outside of the humanities and English department in general, creative writing, etc., where templates, hot plates, information published by federal agencies. I'm a retired Marine. I mean, we were never giving any kind of, you know, works cited when we were creating something that, hey, this is the plan, how this is how we're going to do it. Federal agencies, military, car dealerships, hotels. A lot of these, it's impossible to say who the original owner is. Um, so I guess that's a bit of, stating what the, albeit dilemma is, plagiarism versus original work. How meaningful is that question when we're looking at ChatGPT and what its uses might be? The next question that we're really concerned with is accuracy. Um, Michael Hicks writes a great piece. ChatGPT is bullshit. It's on my works cited, and he's relying heavily on Harry Frankfurt's On Bullshit. Um, but he takes great effort to show that ChatGPT is not a reliable model or source of facts. And then he goes into some of the verbiage that the terms that people use when ChatGPT produces a nonsensical or completely untrue source or whatnot. They call it hallucinations. And he juxtaposed this to humans. We have desires like food, sustenance, social goals, relationships, creation of physical objects. But the large language models, they don't even care about this stuff. Their whole aim, I mean, they don't care. They don't have feelings, right? Their whole aim is to replicate human speech or writing. Um, and the inherent problem is that sometimes they get those, or oftentimes, they get the facts wrong. They're citing laws that don't exist. They're citing medical things that aren't true, or doctors that didn't actually write a certain prognosis, etc. So that's where, um, you know, Mr. Hicks is saying, hey, this chat GPT thing is something that we cannot rely on. And again, Frankfurt understands bullshit to be characterized not by an intent to deceive, but instead a reckless disregard for the truth, which one could argue that's what we get when a high school student or a college student asks ChatGPT, hey, punch me out a 5-page paper on thus and such. But the practical uses, let's talk about them. Acceptance and use of ChatGPT in the academic community. This is Arthur Stalecki et al. And they did some research. They have diagrams. I encourage you to go back and look at some of this research. It's pretty impressive. And they're weighing 7 different constraints: performance expectancy, effort expectancy, social influence, facilitating conditions, hedonic motivation. How happy does it make me? Price value. Does it cost me money to type these things in and get something back? And habit. And then these have an influence on the behavioral intention and the personal innovativeness of the person. So here's a tool, the personal innovativeness of that person, whether in the humanities or in a science project. Like you have, science teachers that will accept data that was generated by some kind of AI model as long as it's referencing back to the actual work that the person did in the lab, for an example. Um, in order to start implementing this tool based on this study, um, he came to the conclusion that really teachers need to get accustomed to using this ChatGPT and other AI models, multimodalities. He's spoken specifically about ChatGPT. Um, but he's basically saying teachers need to get used to using it and get good at it because they need to teach their students how to use it as a tool. So he's saying that people should use the tool for what it is, as a tool. What's it good at and what's it bad at? Um, another study, ChatGPT in higher education supporting academic literacy through ChatGPT based activities. Uh, What's it good at? It's good at when they did a study with groups of students, and it was a complicated subject matter. A student within the group could type into ChatGPT the thing that they were talking about and get a clear summary of what it was that they were saying, which then created a really nice structural support for the academic writing side, so that the AI tool is being used by the students in these groups throughout this study to not only summarize the work, but then to come up with some baselines for how they were going to write about the subject matter. But again, not surprisingly, it wasn't helpful for accuracy in citing papers, and it was citing papers that didn't exist or citing data that didn't exist because again, it's just duplicating. It's made to duplicate human language. It's limited to the online sources. So I have a great advantage being in college to be able to go to the online library and find just about anything I could ever want or think of wanting for references, for information. So much of it is digitized. If worse comes to worse, I could walk into a physical library to get some of this information. And then the other problem, the other negative is different results each time that ChatGPT was asked. Let's say a different student from the same group typing in the same question, getting a different result. So we look at Rhodes and Jonathan Alexander in their work, refiguring our relationship to new media, and they're essentially reminding us we need to embrace these technologies, including ChatGPT, multimodal AI. You know, they're telling us in 2014, 12 years ago, that we need to embrace these technologies, especially on the humanities side, so that like teachers need to know how to use these technologies and to embrace them and make them part of our pedagogy in some way, shape, or form so that we remain relevant to a degree. Um, and here's some great quotes. Our curriculum must change in order to meet the demands of a significantly changing global public sphere, connected through multiple technological and digital interfaces. Now, this was written 12 years ago. Think about how much has changed in the last 12 years, including the Chat GPT being a very powerful force um, in all kinds of walks of life at this point. What does academia think? Look at Grad Pilot as of 2026, and this, there's different versions out there. Somewhere between 20 to 30% of American universities have a forward-facing AI policy, and that's frightening because not only do we as future leaders and teachers need to lean into this, but we need to determine before we even do that, we need to determine what our thoughts about it are. How are we adept in using these things, and how would we suggest them being used, right? Um, how are we going to stay relevant without facing this? And I'm calling it a beast, but it's not quite a beast. It's a tool that can be used in good ways. So I put the question out to my fellow students, and I got some great responses. One of my fellow students said, it's the undergraduate education is largely transactional, and people are going to get in what they are going to get out what they put in. And I think that's, you know, I don't, I don't think that's a great thing for college students to be doing to get their degree necessarily, but I can see that being a practical aspect of what's actually happening practically. Um, some people can support AI helping to write papers on more scientific topics where the authors are using boilerplate language. And we kind of covered that in one of the studies. Boilerplates are are something that's used pretty regularly in the scientific world. Um, and so that it makes sense. How can it be used properly in the academic setting? Rather than replacing learning, I think AI should be used to help further explain ideas. And actually, so it is in the studies that we just talked about. Um, ChatGPT is doing a great job at summarizing some very complicated subjects for students to then digest and then to sort of reassemble, and then it can also help them in coming together with some cogent thoughts and creating a structure from which to write. Um, it's not a tool that's a be all to end all. I completely agree that you wouldn't want to lean on this to write your entire paper because again, you're gonna anybody is gonna come up with information that's not accurate, citations that are not accurate, and it's going to be limited to data that's found open source internet. Okay, Amanda thinks that AI has a place in academia, but teachers need to do a better job of stressing to students that AI is a tool, not a crutch. Completely agree. Based on some of this, the studying that I've done and that I've presented to you, um, I think that what we're looking at is ChatGPT, at least at this juncture, from what I've found, can be a great tool to summarize a difficult topic, whether it's a certain author. I remember when I was taking philosophy, I had a really hard time with Heidegger, and there was a couple other philosophers that my teacher was able to break down for me, but um, Schleiermacher was another one. And so ChatGPT being able to break those down in more simple terms, that's good. And then helping you to come up with a structure is also very helpful. Um, but so ChatGPT, it's not plagiarism if a student is turning in, it's not necessarily plagiarism if a student is turning in something written by ChatGPT. The college may have or not have a policy. Um, Based on AI and all that stuff. And some professors, especially in the humanities, might be, more sensitive to the use of AI programs or tools to either completely write your paper or completely write your work or have it help your work. I've seen the myriad of things. I've seen it be completely forbidden in the college setting that I entered back into in the last 2 years. And I've seen it be very, very open as long as you're citing what kind of tool you were using, what day and time, what you were typed in. Um, and so I think these subjects are really important. I think we need to continue to think about them and lean into them because uh, this is our future, and we need to embrace the culture around that and make it part of humanities, make it part of our English programs, so that it's an accepted thing and that it's used in ways that are beneficial for the people that are using it. Thank you very much. It's been lots of fun.